Salve studenti, this is a video from for the students doing VCE Italian. We're looking at evaluative writing style. So this is one of the 5 writing styles that you got to do for your VCE Italian written exam. And before we saw the persuasive, this is evaluative. There is a few differences. But there is also some commonalities. It is one of these writing styles where you need to quote facts and evidence. However, you need evidence and facts from different sides, so you are evaluating. It is a usual kind of essays where they ask you pros and cons, where they ask you positive and negatives, where they ask you things that are working well and what is not working well. So there are basically contrasting sides. So that's the main idea. Usually in evaluative writing, it may also ask you for an opinion at the end, but that's only in the conclusion. Sometimes if you are writing a report or an article, it's not really necessary. If you are writing a blog, depending on the text type, then you may also give your opinion at the end. So if we look at what we're going to go through now, we're going to focus mainly on the Italian language. We're going to switch to an example. And so what can we incorporate to make sure that I am doing a written piece in which I evaluate, I compare 2 sides of the same event. It could be an object, it could be a movie review, it could be an event that you have attended. Let's go to with the first. These are examples taken from past exams, which you can find on the VCEA website. Common text types are a report, articles that go with evaluative writing. That's probably the 2 most common ones. Let's have a look also. This one was a cooking show, a review, so which is less common, but still possible. Let's go to the now example. There is just one more thing here. Those 3 adjectives should be in our head when we're writing an evaluative piece. We're going to try to be objective, even though we might have an opinion about something. We're going to try to be rational, meaning that we observe the events and we're trying to give both sides of the coin some elements, trying to be proportionate as well, and unbiased. So try not to be judgmental, not to have prejudice, even though you might not like a certain stance on an issue or whatever that might be. Okay. Now let's have a look at the linguistic features. So this is the topic that I'm going to use. Uno scambio con una scuola italiana e il tuo insegnante ti ha chiesto di scrivere un articolo di valutazione per il giornalino della scuola. Therefore, we are comparing here Italy and Australia, and in particular the focus of this is an insight on environmental problem that might be similar or different between the 2 countries. The first things that we need to include, if we want to be objective, impersonal, so we want to be just having a look at the things and report it, we have to use si impersonale. So that's the Italian constructions that we have when we make generalizations. In Australia si usa molta energia di origine fossile. In Australia si esporta moltissimo carbone verso I paesi asiatici. Obviously you can use a si impersonale with the present tense, but also with other moods like the conditional, like in this example. Si dovrebbe insegnare nelle scuole a risparmiare energia e si potrebbero incoraggiare le persone a consumare meno. So this is one element that you can use. Certainly every time that you want to be objective and rational, make like that generalization using si followed by the 3rd person. So if you're not sure how to use these constructions, make sure you revise it. The next thing is trying to use connectors that very clearly shows the cause and the consequence of something. They can also show the opposition, the contrasting sides. But cause and effect, or in Italian we call them causa and effetto, very clearly show a process of certain, let's say, actions or elements and what comes after. The typical connectors are quindi, perciò, allora. A bit less frequent is dunque or di conseguenza, which you may use in writing. Let's have a look at this example. L'Australia è un paese grandissimo, con ricchissime riserve di combustibili fossili. Quindi, so the consequence of this, the fact that Australia has a lot of reserves of fossil fuel, è molto economico produrre energia con il carbone piuttosto che con fonti pulite. Okay, so these are the second element. The third one is using impersonal expression. If we want to take our point of view out of the analysis that I'm doing, apart from using si impersonale, we have lots of expressions in Italian, such as è necessario, bisogna, è evidente, è importante. You can see them here. Some of them requires the use of the infinitive. Some of them may also have che and the subjunctive. But in this way, you can state objective statements and being impersonal. Comparison. This is quite clear. If it is evaluative, we got two sides, and we cannot avoid to do a comparison. Comparison between places, comparison in time. So if I compare the past and the present, comparison between people, points of view. There is a lot of different, obviously, way in which you can compare. So you need to revise how to use the comparatives in Italian. Comparatives can be used with an adjective like this one. L'Australia è un paese più esposto ai cambiamenti climatici rispetto ad altri paesi. Or you can use it with a noun. L'Australia ha meno popolazione dell'Italia, ma inquina di più. Okay? So these are examples of comparatives. Descriptive language. Now, in evaluative writing, we need also to explain in details what's going on and what happened. The best way to do it is by using adverbs, because adverbs allow us to be more specific in the modality, in the way something is happening. The usual common adverbs in Italian, they end with mente, like those examples that you see. L'Australia è sicuramente un paese che deve molto del suo benessere alle esportazioni di carbone. So this can be taken away. However, in writing, if you want to have a writing that is more sophisticated, you got to make sure that you make room also for adverbs. And there is some more example here that you can look, pause the video and look it up. Okay. Adjectives. I don't have any example of adjectives here, but adjectives will need, again, to make the language more precise about the topic, that showing that you have knowledge about the topic that you are describing. Data. We mentioned that earlier. Data is statistics, numbers, any sort of numerical estimates that you can give, even the years, obviously, and our data. These are important in when you make this type of writing. Again, the data is not going to be, like in this example, we're talking about the environment. It's not that the examiner is going to look at whether this 30% it's real or if you missed. This is not a science exam. It's about how you write it in Italian, okay? So, l'Australia potrebbe essere responsabile del 17% delle emissioni di gas nell'atmosfera entro il 2030. And finally, a bit more connectors. Before we saw the ones of cause and effect, like quindi allora. These are connectors of contrast, and you can also see just down here connectors of sequence, which are super common, and that allows you to do your logical discourse. And we go to the conclusion. Now, as we mentioned earlier, conclusion is a space where you can give your opinion, especially if you're writing a blog or if you're writing to an audience that is asking you for asking for your opinion. So these are some expressions that you can use. And most importantly, when you have to practice this evaluative writing, look at past exams. This is an example in which that you could practice, an example in which you have to talk advantages and disadvantages of studying abroad, or taking a sabbatical year, or talking about technology. Just choose one of those aspects and see whether you can talk about pros and cons of making that decision. This is another one. This is an evaluative speech. And this is another question. This is a review for a travel magazine about traveling a long trip along Australia. So that's also something that you can do to practice. Most importantly, when you brainstorm your ideas, very much divide the pages in two, write 3 or 4 positive, write 3 or 4 negatives in dot points, and then you start putting your ideas together. Write your introduction, and then you will have your conclusion. Make sure that you have the same amount of positive and negative. So if you decide to do 2, then you do 2 for the positive, 2 for the negatives, and so on. Just one more example on how this one looks when you put it on a paper. If you look at, so this is just a summary, and the example of evaluative writing is this one. So in this case, we are talking about online lessons. What were the pros and the cons of online lessons? And you can see that there is an introduction. You can read that in just by pausing the video. And on the right side, I put what is good about this this paragraph, because then as we go and without going to the advantages, the good sides of online learning, I list 1, 2, 3, and then I connect the twos with an idiomatic expression. Non è tutto oro quello che luccica, meaning that not everything is, literally means not everything that shines is gold. In this context, it means there is also, let's say, not a dark side, but a bad side of online learning. And this one were the 3 disadvantages, like the lack of social interaction, the fact that there is a lot of distractions, and also the fact that there is technical issues. Okay, then your conclusion, where you summarize a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages. Here I've used a contrast, a connectors sebbene, which takes the congiuntivo. Possiamo affermare che sebbene i vantaggi siano notevoli in termini di accessibilità, non possiamo ignorare che la tecnologia impedisce agli studenti di interagire in modo naturale. So you summarize us. In this case, I didn't give any opinion, but I just gave the pros and cons of online learning. I hope this is useful for your VCE written exam, and I'll see you soon. Ciao.